Coming up on the Fish Hunt Forever podcast.
Minnesota continues to be on the front edge of, looking into additional restrictions on lead for ammunition and fishing tackle.
You wouldn't be able to set a mousetrap in your house?
Yeah, that's what it appears, right?
We talked about some new fishing regulations in Minnesota. Things got a little confusing. We have some clarifications.
I don't think you want to usher in the precedent that locality should be setting hunting regulation.
This is the Fish Hunt Forever podcast, formerly Sporting Journal Radio, presented by OnX. Know where you stand with OnX. That's right. Welcome to the show. I'm Bret Amundson, along with Dan Amundson over there. What's up, Dan?
Hi.
And David. No, is David over there? His lights
He is.
So
he's with us.
He's with us in spirit. There.
He's right there.
Hell yeah, brother. There he is from the SGR 500 2025. The 2026 SGR 500 is coming back April 7th and 8th to Riverbend Resort on the Rainy River. All the details at fishhuntforever.com. We're going to be talking more about that tournament. In fact, Dan, I think this year we should come up with if people catch the state record or if they're wearing Fish Hunt Forever gear or something we should come up with some contingency stuff.
It's fun you say that because we're actually into a position now where with the Rainy River sturgeon fishery being the way it is, that's a real possibility. Did anything sound funny to you over there? Or my headphones just messed up?
I mean, you always sound a little funny, but...
you sound fine?
I sound fine, yeah.
I think these are broken. It's because I'm not wearing my Eau Clairs.
You blew it.
Yeah. Anyways.
Well, figure that out, and I'll just keep talking for a little bit. We're going to get ready for the rest of the show. We'll talk more about that SGR 500 coming up a little bit later in the show. Also, what's going on in the Minnesota legislature right now? I mean, it's hard to get away from politics, but there are a few things that we should probably be paying attention to, and if there's something you don't like, you can get a hold of your state representative about. And if you're sick of politics, you've been turning off the TV because there's just too much negative news going on in the world right now. Well, we've got Rob Sexton. He is Senior Vice President at the Sportsmen's Alliance. He leads the government affairs team, and he's going to be joining us. They have a bill tracker on their website. This is one of the best things I've seen on some of these websites that are out there, the conservation and advocacy group websites for sportsmen and women out there. Sportsmen's Alliance is a bill tracker, so you can click on that. You can click on Minnesota, and you can see what bills are in the legislature, in the House, and the Senate, and figure out just who's introducing them and whether or not you agree with them. And Rob's going to break down what's going on in Minnesota for us coming up later in the show. Joe Henry will also have a Lake of the Woods fishing report for us as well. And we don't have to get into it right now, Dan, but we got a little clarification on some of the new fishing regs in Minnesota.
Yeah, they're really confusing. And if you listened to last week's show, you heard how confused we were because they're confusing. But we figured it out. It's not that bad. We got it.
All right, we'll explain coming up. But first,
there's your trailer.
Oh, yep. I like that. That is Space Trailers. Very nice. First, though, who are the sponsors this week on the show, Dan?
Lake of the Woods Tourism. Lake of the Woods is the walleye capital of the world. Plan an ice fishing trip to Lake of the Woods at lakeofthewoodsmn.com or open water. OnX Hunt. See private land boundaries, offline maps, and more. Take 20% off new membership with code SGR20. Hable Heights Campground and Resort. Fish Devil's Lake out of a snow bear or open water at Hable Heights. Learn more at hableheights.com. Riverbend Resort. Put yourself in the heart of the fish migration at the Rainy River and Lake of the Woods with Riverbend Resort. And Prairie Sportsmen. New season just started last week, and we've got a new episode coming up this Sunday.
That's right. We go up the Gunflint Trail and jump in a boat with Jessica Berg Coleman and go fishing with her and learn about how she is getting into the business that her dad famously did for many, many years and still does up at the end of the Gunflint Trail. Plus, we visit the Chickawauk Museum. If you've never seen it, it's a really cool museum celebrating the history of the Gunflint Trail and the resorts in the area and all the other history that's there. Here's a little sneak peek of it right now. Coming up on the next Prairie Sportsman, we're on the Gunflint Trail, catching up with fishing guide Jessica Berg Coleman of Seagull Creek Fishing Camp. So you grew up in a fishing family. This is kind of natural for you.
Yes, hardcore fishing family.
Then we visit the Chickawauk Museum and Nature Center to get a look at the history, culture, and wildlife of the Gunflint Trail. And Nicole Zempel shares the value of the sow thistle.
I utilize the green leaves.
So you'll be able to watch that Sunday night at 7:30 on Pioneer PBS or on the Prairie Sportsman YouTube channel. That's usually available Sundays at noon. And then you can watch it. I think we're into Indiana now with this show.
Really?
So I think we're in 8 states on 13 stations, I think, with that show. So pretty neat. So if you want to see it and you don't want to go to YouTube, you can just look on the PBS station near you, or every PBS station in the country has it on their website. So if you're listening in Florida right now and you want to watch it on the Florida PBS station, you can do that. Just search for Prairie Sportsmen. All right, it's time for some headlines right now, brought to you by Space Trailers. Headlines. So Space Trailers is a Minnesota-based company. They're based in Red Wing. They're a small, lightweight, durable trailer that does not take up a lot of room. I've been seeing on the Space Trailers Instagram account, there it is right there, a trailer like that, if you're watching this, with those space bars up on top. You can put tents up there. You can put 225 pounds of gear up there. A lot of people have been camping recently with their space trailer, whether on it or next to it. And of course, you can get 600 pounds worth of gear, or 1,000 pounds worth of gear. It's a 600-pound trailer, and it doesn't take up a lot of room. You can actually tip it up and store it up against the back wall of your garage if you don't have a lot of space for it. Find out more at spacetrailers.com. So last week, Dan, we talked about some new fishing regulations in Minnesota. Things got a little confusing. We have some clarifications.
What do we got?
Well,
did you want me to read
I thought
this?
you were going to read it.
Oh, I thought you were going to read it. Hang on.
That's
Do you have the email open?
On-air prep work here. I can pull it up for sure.
I can pull it up too. Oh, there's a hockey game.
Well, we are, yeah.
Stream live on your TV or download the KSTP app. Well, no, I thought I could watch it on the computer.
What is going on? All right, come on. Here we go. Quick interpretation. So Joe Henry actually reached out to the state of Minnesota and the DNR, and the question is whether anglers are allowed to use more than a single bait per hook. For example, can you put 2 Euro larvae per ice jig, or 2 night crawlers and an emerald shiner on a sturgeon rig, or a 2-hook crawler harness with a minnow on each hook? The simple answer is yes, you can. You can have multiple waxworms, crawlers, or other live bait on a single hook, treble hook, or single artificial bait. It was never the intent of the DNR to restrict the amount of bait on a hook. The only restriction is that you cannot have 3 separate hooks with 3 separate. The only restriction is that you cannot have 3 separate hooks with 3 separate bait setups capable of hooking more than one fish at a time. So basically, they didn't want this to become like an Alabama rig or something, Dan.
Which is kind of what I was assuming, but it's just good to get that clarification and figure out the fact that our ways of fishing are not in jeopardy in the state, like some people thought. Yeah,
it was real confusing by the way it was worded.
Shocker.
I know. They went on to say the quick litmus test that you can do is you can ask yourself, all right, if I drop this into the water, if I drop this into the water, can I catch multiple fish at the same time on it? If the answer is yes, you're probably doing it wrong.
Well, that's a scary thing to say, because people are now going to come back and say, well, I caught 2 smallmouth on my jerkbait once. Can I use a jerkbait ever again?
Well, that's a pretty extreme example.
But you know what I'm saying?
It happens, sure.
I've caught 2 fish on crawler harnesses before.
Yeah. 2 small perch or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But that's okay. But
you know
that's
what I'm saying?
Exception, not the rule.
Yes, but you also know how people are. They're going to say, well, I can catch multiple fish on this, so DNR's stupid.
I think
because that's you.
Somebody
you and
always takes it to that.
You and
extreme.
I both know how it is. So
I think a lot of this stuff is based on quick strike rigs too.
Well, that's the only reason any of this was ever brought into place in the first place, because they changed the quick strike rig rule, and so then they had to clarify what you could and couldn't do as far as, they didn't want a guy dropping 3 minnows down with 3 hooks on a quick strike rig 18 inches apart. So
this specific change came about as a request from the public to increase the total length single tackle configuration could be from 9 inches to 18 inches by musky anglers. They wanted to use large suckers or artificial baits that may have the 3 separate hooks more than a total of 9 inches apart. Therefore, the rule was changed to allow the total hook spread to be up to 18 inches apart. Since the total length increased, it also increased the potential to make this capable of catching multiple fish at a time. Therefore, language was added to clarify that that was not the intent of the change. So there you have it. Right there. All right. Just a couple quick things. If you use like Itasca State Park at all or that area, they are going to reconfigure some cross-country ski trails. They're going to open up some other existing trails to skiing. They're going to add some new ski trails. They're adding new overnight camping opportunities at Pine Ridge and one of the other places. that I can't pronounce. They're converting 2 buildings, the Nicollet Cabin and that aforementioned name that I cannot pronounce. There's a pump house. They're going to convert that building into overnight lodging. Ozawandib. Maybe that's how you say it. They're removing the existing Nicollet Court guest lodging building near Douglas Lodge, replacing with a picnic pavilion. And then there's one other thing they're going to change the water accesses, the public water accesses at Bear Paw Campground and Douglas Lodge into carry use only to protect the water quality of those water bodies. So a couple things. I want to mention this too, Dan. This is kind of interesting about Mille Lacs Lake. There's an article in Outdoor News, and the Tony Roach was interviewed about it, and they're talking about hook mortality. So when you start talking about limits on Mille Lacs, everybody worries about, well, are we going to open up with a 2-fish limit, a 3-fish limit? How many fish are going to get caught before, is the season going to have to get closed down? It's kind of a nightmare to have to manage a lake like that, right? And then one of the factors considered is the hooking mortality. Well, what people are finding out when it comes to forward-facing sonar is that the hook mortality with people using live scope is not as bad as what it was prior to this new technology. And the reason is this: people are not fishing with Lindy rigs as much. They're not trolling with lead core as much. They're out there pitching jigs. Tony Roach talked all about this in this article, and even talked about how, hey, during August and September, I just fish in that 15 to 20 foot depth, and I use my live scope or whatever Tony has, and whatever his forward-facing sonar electronics are. And before he had that, he trolled lead core from July to September trying to find the fish. So the hooking mortality may be going down because of forward-facing sonar. So when everybody talks about how bad this is, it may actually be helping the walleyes on Mille Lacs. So last year's hooking mortality wasn't as severe as it had been in previous years, with a total of 3,196 pounds of walleye lost to hooking mortality, which kind of curious how they figured that out.
Aren't we all? It's government data.
All right, one last thing about headlines here. The DNR, another article in there, the DNR is planning to unveil its new electronic licensing system this spring.
What? Wait, what? I haven't heard this. Hang on.
That's what, straight from the DNR commissioner's mouth.
Oh, well then, okay, so it'll be 2032?
This wasn't in the article, but there's been a rumor going around that the reason for this delay is that it was being developed at the Quality Leering. What is that? Quality Leering? All right, the SGR 500 is coming up. More details and a new way that you could win some cash as part of that tournament. It doesn't get much better than fresh perch and fresh walleye. If you're looking for an exciting winter fishing destination, come to Devil's Lake, North Dakota. Haybale Heights Campground and Resort is on the ice with a fleet of snow bears, keeping you mobile and warm so you can stay on the roaming schools of fish. Haybale Heights on the east end of Devil's Lake has knowledgeable guides, comfortable cabins, and their own lake access, making your trip as successful and stress-free as possible. To book your trip, go to haybaleheights.com. That's haybaleheights.com. All right, we're back here on the Fish Hunt Forever show. The SGR 500 is coming April 7th and 8th at Riverbend Resort on the Rainy River. Heavy Hauler is back as a sponsor. They'll have gear bags to give away to winners. Once again, Chef Roberts will be there with bags of breading mix. We also have brand new, Dan, I don't know if you can pull up the store or have images of this, but we have brand new 20-ounce tumblers, hats, and hoodies for this year's tournament available. You can find them on the Fish Hunt Forever website. Just click on store when you do that. And I think, Dan, in the past, first place walleye, first place sturgeon, they get 25% of the entry fees. There's the new mugs. If you're watching this, there's the new mugs and hoodies. We worked the old school camo into the design this year because somebody actually requested that. Yep. But everybody loves the old school camo. But we got a regular one too without the camo of the hoodies there. Those hoodies, like the old school camo hoodies, are really cool. They're a little lighter weight than I'd like them to be. So I made one that's a little bit of a heavier weight SGR 500 hoodie as well, in a number of different colors that's on that store. And then we also have the old school camo mug and then some other mug colors as well available at fishhuntforever.com. So first place walleye and first place sturgeon always get 25% of the entry fees. fees. 25% of the entry fees go to keep it clean. We also normally have a number of other prizes. So Onyx Elite memberships, usually some Onyx hats, maybe some Onyx fish hats and stuff like that. Maybe Ray's Sport and Marine might have some prizes for us. We're still collecting a bunch of stuff that we'll do.
I think they're giving away like 4 brand new boats.
Oh, yeah, that's right. One to you, one to me.
That's what I've heard.
And then
I thought you were pro material, trying to make the big bucks.
Totally forgot, Dan.
Hey, Chuck, what kind of big bucks?
I always forget that goes on way too long.
Yeah, that one went on for a long time. But
anyways, they're not giving away boats.
No, they are not. We should just clarify that real quick. Anyway, so I think we should find a way, because we've been talking about this now off the air. We mentioned a little bit at the beginning, but there's a good chance that somebody could catch a state record sturgeon while we're up there.
It's not like the chance is not zero. Right. It's never been zero, but it's really not zero now. It's actually, I'm not going to say it's likely, but it's not unlikely.
It's definitely a chance for it. So we thought, if you're wearing this kind of we're stealing it from the from the St. Paul Winter Carnival. You know how if you find the medallion, you win something, but if you buy the button and then you find the medallion, you get an extra contingency prize.
You've paid way more attention to the St. Paul Winter Carnival than I ever have.
We used to, when I was a kid, we used to go looking for that thing all over the place. Oh yeah, it was fun.
You didn't have anything better to do?
I almost found it one year. It was, where was it? It was not off of, it was like, it's one of those state parks or
Itasca
National Wildlife Refuges along the river, just north of 494 there, and kind of by Egan, Bloomington, that area there along the Minnesota. And I was walking along the trail, it's like a bike path, and I remember seeing like a diaper on the ground next to a garbage can going, gross. I can't believe that there's a diaper just laying there. And I just kept walking. The dang thing was in that diaper.
Huh.
And I did not win. But anyway, so, and then if you win a major fishing tournament, and say you're a Yamaha guy, maybe Yamaha's got a contingency prize for you, if you win. So we wanted to do something like that. So we should give away, I don't know, some extra cash or something, Dan?
Everybody loves cash.
I was trying to think, should we give them a hoodie or a hat? And I was like, let's just give them cash. Let's give them cash. So if you're wearing let's not make them buy any new SJR gear this year, 500 gear. Just any Fish Hunt Forever gear this year, maybe?
I think that's valid. If you've already spent your money with us, then thank you very much. We'd love for you to spend more with us.
Yeah.
Because we've got new stuff in the store every day. But yeah, throw a hat on, throw a hoodie on, and there's going to be some cheapskate out there that's going to be on a boat with like 4 other people, and they're going to have one hat that they just pass around and share with each other. But, whatever. We just want get your gear in your fish picks.
So that's the thing. I think that's what we should do, is the picture that you submit to Fish Donkey for your fish. So when you catch a fish in our tournament, if you haven't used a Fish Donkey app before, you got to take a picture of the fish on a bump board. You got to take a picture of you holding the fish, and then you're supposed to do a release video, but I don't think we do that because you can only register one fish anyway. It's all catch and release. So you have to do a picture on the bump and a picture of you holding it. So in your picture that you submit to Fish Donkey, if you're wearing Fish Hunt Forever gear that's visible, that we can read, so it's not a hat that's covered by a stocking cap, or it's not a hoodie that's covered up by a jacket. If we can read Fish Hunt Forever, FHF, in that picture, and you win our tournament, we'll give you, I don't know, what do you think, an extra $200?
How rich are you?
Extra $100?
It's your money, not mine.
Let's do, if you take first, we'll give you an extra $200, and you're wearing Fish Hunt Forever stuff.
I think that's fair. David's not here this week, so we can just take the money that
we're going to pay
company
him.
Normally would have paid him for him being here.
Now wait a minute, I got to think about this. So if you take second place, I'll give you 100, and if you finish third, I'll give you an extra 50. But if we get both top ones, both second place, and like if all 6 people are wearing stuff, that's 100, 200, 300, 500. So that's $700 right there. I'm going to have to
follow the science.
Yeah, I'm going to have to do some more math, but we're going to do some contingency prizes. We'll announce it. here, just follow us on social media. Maybe next week on the show we'll announce it. But we will give you some extra cash if you're wearing Fish on Forever gear in your winning picture. And what about if somebody catches that state record sturgeon, Dan?
They pay us because the Fish on Forever gear obviously is the reason they caught the state record.
All right, so we'll bonus it. We'll up it if you catch state record sturgeon or heck the state record walleye, and it breaks the record, and you're wearing Fish on Forever gear in the picture. We'll figure out a contingency prize for you.
What about cash. Like state record? No, we can't open the door to all these state records because if somebody catches like the state record pike minnow, nobody cares.
If it's any other category, we'll do $50 if you're wearing Fish on Forever gear and you win the any other category. We'll throw in a contingency there too, and I don't know. Maybe I'll
buy you a beer,
a state record sucker. We'll have to come up with something.
I'll buy you a dum dum like the suckers. You know what I'm talking about? No.
Oh yeah.
Buy a bag of those. You can have that.
All right. Hey, Dan, have you ever bit down on a BB while you're eating goose or pheasant or duck or anything?
It's a universal experience for bird hunters.
I was in the dentist this morning, and out here in western Minnesota, he's like, I see that a lot out here. That happens quite frequently. It's usually pheasant. So there's my tooth. If you're watching this right now, the upper right-hand corner is where the tooth broke off. I made some goose the other day. I bit down on some goose, broke my tooth, and he looked at it and said, okay, that's all filling. In between, you can see there's 3 other parts of my tooth sticking up above that filling. Well, that open spot is where the tooth broke off. And I could have either done a crown for the whole thing or just have him fill it in again. And I said, I don't have dental insurance, just fill it in again. And, when someday when I catch the state record sturgeon and win this contingency prize, I can maybe pay for a full crown on there. But I posted on Snapchat about this, and I asked, what do you do for BBs in your wild game? Do you have a metal detector? Do you use a magnet? Because I remember hunting with somebody about 20 years ago, Dan, and he found this commercial magnet, this heavy duty big a magnet, and he would run that across goose breasts and it would rip those steel pellets right out of it. And I'm like, that's what I want. Like, I don't care if the meat gets cut open a little bit, because I'm generally going to trim it and cut it anyway, shred it, whatever the case may be. But if I can get something that rips the BBs out, I know pheasants, if you're shooting lead or some other non-toxic shot that doesn't have that magnetic quality, you might have to do something different. But I want something that's going to rip them right out of there. So I found a magnet on not eBay, the other one, Amazon, for like $10. It's a 350 pound magnet. I think they call it a fishing magnet. It's not here yet. So when it gets here, I'll test it out. We'll do a video. We'll put it in next week's podcast. But I would love to hear from you. I know a lot of people out there use these pinpointer wands, these metal detector wands. And the only thing about that is then I still have to go back in and dig the thing out. But it should find a lot of these other BBs that the magnet won't. So let me know in the comments below, what do you use? And tune in next week to see our test run of this new magnet, because I did hear from a few people using magnets.
I think what I'm going to start doing in the future, just after a hunt, I'm going to buy tickets to like a wild game, and then I'm just going to bring my meat to the game and just walk through the metal detector.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I definitely thought you were going somewhere else with this.
Where?
Well, because everybody was making jokes about me walking around with broken teeth.
Oh.
And then saying I was Jack Hughes.
Oh, yeah.
And
no.
I was saying, well, where's Tate McRae then?
I'm just picturing myself with my bag of meat walking through the metal that's like, all right, next. And I walk through with that and it doesn't go off. All right, turn around and go home.
Can I do it again? I got more meat in the car. I'll be right back. Yeah, that's a great idea.
Thanks.
And let me know how that goes.
Follow for more tips from Dan.
Hey, we are going to do another live look into the watery migration highway up at Lake of the Woods. Everybody's waiting for that spring migration for the walleyes to come into the Rainy River so we can go up there and catch them and chase them around. And we've teamed up at the River Bend. We've got this underwater camera on the migration highway. Let's see what the walleyes are up to today, what they're doing. Live looking. There it is. There's the billboard.
Whoa, stay on the road.
Oh, look, they're chasing emerald shiners around.
That one had a dance party. Nice. Stay on the keep her in between.
All right, there it is. We are excited to be up at Riverbend Resort on the migration highway as these walleyes chase emerald shiners into the Rainy River. Join us April 7th and 8th for the SJR 500, presented by Ray's Sport and Marine. All the details at fishhuntforever.com. What bills are in the legislature that you should be aware of in Minnesota? We'll find out with Rob Sexton from the Sportsmen's Alliance when we come back. Sick of eating tag soup? It's time to own your odds this fall with OnX Hunt, the GPS hunting app trusted by millions of hunters. Now you'll have access to nationwide public and private land ownership information, waypoints, optimal win for each stand, tracks, and much more. All at your fingertips. Go to onxmaps.com/hunt and use code SJR20 at checkout to receive 20% off your membership. That's code SJR20.
Ready when you are.
All right, we're back. This is Fish Hunt Forever. Thanks for watching this on YouTube or downloading the podcast wherever you get your favorite podcasts, or maybe you're listening to this on the Fish Hunt Forever radio network. Well, as sick of politics as we get sometimes here just in life or on this show, it's good to talk about them at times. And Rob Sexton from the Sportsmen's Alliance is going to join us right now to talk about some important stuff that was taking place, what we need to, think about for the future. Rob, thanks for coming on the show. You're the senior vice president. You deal with stuff like this, politics and government affairs a lot, don't you?
I do, and thanks for having me on the show, Brett. Politics has always been something I've been very interested in my whole life. So a lot of people hate this stuff, but for me, it's always been a big level of interest. So it's the perfect mix. I love hunting, fishing, shooting, all of it. And then I get to practice my trade in politics with the Sportsmen's Alliance.
Well, that's great. We need people like you because most of us that love the outdoors, we like to get into the outdoors to get away from all of that stuff. And I tend to find myself paying attention to the news and the politics I'm getting older, and I think that happens as you get a little bit older and you start to realize that, okay, there are some threats to my way of life out there, and it's important that you vote this way or talk to your representatives this way and make sure that your voice gets heard. So as much as you don't want to get involved sometimes, you have to. And there were a couple of things. First of all, before we get into what's going on in Minnesota or what took place in Minnesota recently, I want to just mention Oregon because, Oregon is I don't want to call it a dumpster fire, but I will. What they're talking about doing, and I shouldn't say all of Oregon, but what's going on in regards to the outdoors and hunting and fishing out there is pretty scary stuff.
It is. And so, obviously what you're talking about is IP 28, which is a pending ballot issue in Oregon. It goes so much farther than hunting or even fishing. This is a comprehensive ballot issue that would deal with livestock, dog ownership, dog breeding, hunting, fishing, shooting. It is such an overreach that you'd like to think, well, there's no way in the world enough people will sign a petition to put this on the ballot. But it's Oregon, and it would appear like they're on the verge of having enough signatures. And we recently wrote about it here at the Sportsmen's Alliance. I called it the issue that'll make Oregon the animal rights capital of the world, and for sure, animal rights capital of the United States. It's so crazy, but then you say, gosh, they might actually qualify this thing, and I think they're on the verge of doing just that.
That's so scary. And it all started, it's basically an animal cruelty bill, right? And it's about it would ban anything that would do any harm to animals aside from if your life is in danger, if you're being attacked, or if you're a vet and you need to put an animal down or something. I mean, that's kind of the gist of it, right?
Yes, and anything that they would deem as unnecessary, right? So if it causes suffering, then you can't do it. So, if you spay or neuter a dog, that would cause suffering, for example.
Oh boy.
Any kind of rearing techniques, like tail docking, which a lot of people do with their, pointing dogs. I'm like, can't do it. It just basically forbids lethal dispatch of animals for any use. It's just absolutely the craziest thing. Lots of times the antis are really clever about the way they do stuff, and we have to work hard to explain how nuts it is. We don't have to work hard on this one. This one's just pure animal rights.
Wouldn't that include setting a mouse trap even too? You wouldn't be able to set a mouse trap in your house?
Yeah, that's what it appears, right? Yeah. And it's hard to believe something like this could get approved at the same time, it's hard to believe something like this could even make the ballot. So if nothing else, this is going to get everybody's attention and just underscore what we've always said. The animal rights movement normally goes after what they think are low-hanging fruit. In this case, they're going after everything.
Well, I think they've also learned that sometimes you can shoot for the moon and then you end up a compromise somewhere in the middle, which is actually more than what they wanted in the first place. So yeah. I'm not surprised of it at all. And don't get me wrong. None of us want to see animals suffer. Yes, we hunt and fish and we harvest game and we eat it and all of that. But, a lot of times, even if we wound something, we're doing what we can to put it out of its misery as quickly as possible. We don't want to see any harm done to animals. But I swear, these people would rather see humans go extinct and just have animals run the world. And can you imagine if let's say the apex predators out there, grizzly bears, mountain lions, wolves, whatever the case may be, if they were running things, how much savagery there would be in the world?
Yeah. There's a level of self-hatred that these people must possess for the human race, right? Because nature itself is pretty savage, and at least to your point, we try to minimize anything like that, like wounding and the like. It happens, but when it does, most of us are pretty ate up with it, and yet they'd rather see nature take its course and as cruel as it can be than let us have what we need in order to sustain ourselves. Gosh, as part of the food chain, for God's sake.
Right. Well, and what makes that even worse is that, when we try to say, hey, these are animals that we're living off of. They're healthy, they're natural, they're organic, and they're better for us than going to the grocery store and buying something there. It's actually better for the human race. They don't care. Like they don't want us to be healthy. They'd rather just see us go away. And you know what really scares me about this, Rob, is I feel like Minnesota. There are parts of Minnesota and parts of the population of the state that kind of look at Oregon like, like they're in love with, like they love what's going on over there. So
yeah,
I think there's way too many sportsmen and women in this state to have it get to that level. But I could see them trying something like that here.
Yeah, Minnesota seems to be on the same trajectory, just way beyond, behind what the loony things that are happening in Oregon, but the trend is not in the right direction, that's for sure. And so, yeah, I could see these things coming to Minnesota. Something that Minnesota has in common with Oregon is it's dominated by one major media market. In Oregon, of course, with Portland, and then with the Twin Cities in Minnesota. And so when you have that much of your state's political control in the hands of just one massive metropolitan area, a lot of crazy ideas can get up off the ground and get momentum.
I finally had to cancel my subscription to the newspaper. I've been putting it off for a long time, but they still, have some outdoor stories in there that, me being a guy in the media wants to keep up on the topics and what's happening. I've kept it. I finally gave up on it because it was just absolute garbage, just trash. And that's definitely a problem. And we saw something, to me, it came a bit out of nowhere, and it sounds like it didn't last very long, but that anti-gun bill that popped up recently, it sounds like it flamed out pretty quick, but that kind of came up and went, and I didn't expect to see. I mean, I should have expected to see it, let's be honest, but I didn't expect it to happen like that.
Yeah, so actually it was a package of 3 bills, that were, I think for the average person on its face, it looks like gun control. They don't think about how it can impact sportsmen. But, the most notable one, of course, is what they're calling the assault weapons ban. But they define assault weapons based on characteristics of the firearm. So, for example, I've got a turkey hunting semi-automatic shotgun that's got a pistol grip. If it's got a pistol grip, it could be considered an assault weapon. If it's got a telescopic buttstock, it could be considered an assault weapon. And so they assign these characteristics that make something an assault weapon if the magazine capacity is over 10, which of course many rifles are, for example, 22s. There's no room in this legislation for grandfathering in firearms that you've had your whole life. And there's even elements of their ability to search your house without a warrant to look for guns like this once they're banned. That's pretty scary stuff, and it does affect sportsmen. And of course, it also affects, on a fundamental level, constitutional rights. But that bill, it did not make it out of committee, but the legislature's not done, so that language could be amended into something else that's, fast moving.
Well, wasn't there something where there was some sort of grandfather clause for something in there, and they said, but if you do have one of these guns that's grandfathered in, you won't be able to use it on public land?
Yeah. And so then you'd have to know exactly, where the borders of public land lie. And let's face it, when you get out in the middle of nowhere, it can be pretty easy to cross a line and not really know it. You do your best, but it can happen. And so the public land ban is a really important aspect of that bill. Perhaps for sportsmen who are not really Second Amendment activists, one of the other bills, House File 3351, dealt with allowing localities, cities and townships, to all establish their own gun regulations. And, what makes that tricky is if you take any large city, it's surrounded by various small towns and villages and the like. And if every one of them was able to establish what gun laws look like, we'd spend all our time trying not to break the law. And so that's why a lot of states like Minnesota have a law that says the state needs to be uniform so that we can all have a clear-cut understanding and that the law doesn't accidentally criminalize us, right? And so that was another one of the bills that were part of this package. Fortunately, it died in committee, but just like the other one, as long as the legislature's in session, it can be added to just about anything.
One thing about your website, Sportsmen's Alliance website, that I really like is that there's a bill tracker on there, and you can click on the state that you're in, so you can click on Minnesota to see what's going on. To me, that is an invaluable resource, and I clicked on it the other day, and then like 3 hours later, I was like, I got to get out of here. Like, there's a lot going on here.
Well, there's a lot, and it can get depressing too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, go ahead, Rob.
Go ahead. Well, I was just going to say one other on the ominous front is Minnesota continues to be on the front edge of looking into additional restrictions on lead for ammunition and fishing tackle. And I think when you get down to it, it's just a matter of accessibility and affordability.
For sure.
Hunting and fishing are one of those things that you can make it as expensive as you want, but you can also participate at a level that anybody can do. And so, all of us, go to the gun store tomorrow and look at the price of premium ammunition and alternative ammunition, and you'll see what we're talking about and why we take these kinds of discussions so very seriously. Because in the end, the more restrictions, the less people will participate, and that's what will ultimately spell the end of hunting, is if there just aren't enough of us to matter anymore.
Well, I've definitely seen some benefits of using non-toxic ammunition, and I'm not against trying to find alternative methods, and I will use them when I can. I still have a tray full of lead head jigs, of course. And
imagine having to use tungsten sinkers all the time.
This stuff is so expensive.
Yeah.
But I will say that
thanks, Water Gremlin.
The more people do use the non-toxic stuff, the less expensive it'll become. The more it's produced, the more equipment built to manufacture the non-toxic stuff, the more the cost starts to come down. So I like having the option of people, if they don't want to use lead, they don't have to. There are other options. But I'll tell you, I remember 10 years ago, I used to buy a box of 25 12 gauge 3-inch shotgun shells, 2-shot for snow goose or whatever. I could get a case of it for $100. $10-11 a box, and now you go out there and what is it, $22-23 a box or something like that, which I've been buying bismuth, and some of these other alternatives out there for upland hunting. And then last year I was in a hurry and I was at the store and I was on a trip and I was already spending a bunch of money. I'm like, I'm just going to buy a box of lead because this stuff is like, the prices are getting out of control. So,
and it works. It's dang good.
Yes. And it performs. That's right. I think I wrote an article years ago for the Sportsmen's Alliance called Death by a Thousand Cuts. And I said, look, The animal rights crowd, they're not going to eliminate us most likely by a complete ban on hunting, I guess, unless you're in Oregon. But
Jeez.
they're going to get us by loading us down with so many regulations and so many restrictions and things that make it harder to participate. And if you drive up the cost of hunting on families, I've got 3 boys. Now they're all grown now, but I'm still on the hook sometimes to provide ammo when we go do stuff, because I'm dad. Well, my goodness, the next thing you know, you take what was $40 worth of ammo and it becomes $100, $120.
Yeah.
This stuff will make a difference. And so I'm like you. I like having the options. I like people getting education on making good choices, but I really hate the direction of we're just going to limit it, because ultimately you're going to wind up with less people in the field or less people on the water.
And I'm all for clean water and doing the right thing for the environment, and obviously not leaving lead fragments in a gut pile or something that an eagle is going to eat. But I will say this, we have plenty of eagles right now.
Yes. Yes.
Eagles are not endangered, okay?
No.
You're getting
No, isn't it funny you can say that now?
Well, I remember growing up, it was a big deal to see an eagle. I know some people are still like, oh, look, a bald eagle. And I'm like, I see them every day looking out my window, the recovery on bald eagles is a cool story. It's great. They are neat birds, but they're doing just fine. All right.
Absolutely.
So obviously there were some things that scared us in the legislature. There are also some good things in there that you saw.
Yeah. And to lay the groundwork for this part of our talk, sort of a general philosophy I've always had about hunting, and I call it, I want more. And the I want more philosophy means I don't care how you hunt and what you hunt or where you fish and how you fish. I just care that you do. And so oftentimes we'll get into battles about, whether an inline muzzleloader is really a primitive weapon or whether a crossbow is legit in archery season.
Oh, hey now, you're touching a hot button.
Yeah.
You don't want my opinion on the crossbow.
That's where I'm going. But, in the end, if it keeps someone in the field, then I'm generally for it, And so right now I know they were dealing with straight wall cartridge rifles. We legalized straight wall cartridge rifles for deer hunting in Ohio. That's my home state.
Okay.
Probably 7 or 8 years ago. My goodness, what a great tool.
Really? What kind of difference did it make over there? What'd you see?
Well, so we were all slug guns prior to that, right?
Boy.
So you're talking about practically doubling the range, and they shoot easy. The recoil, for a lot of people, especially like kids and some women, you fire in a great big rifle or a slug, it really bangs you. But that, like a 350 Legend is what I shot a buck with this year, and the recoil is a lot less, and the lethality is really good.
All right, so one thing too, Rob, I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on is what's been going on in Minnesota, where they removed the shotgun only restriction for the southern half of the state, but then they left it up to each county to decide. And it's been interesting. I'm still not even quite sure where we're sitting with our county here, just because I bow hunt more than anything, and then I started muzzleload hunting. I mean, I grew up with my 30-06 in Northwest Wisconsin, and then once I moved to Minnesota and couldn't shoot a rifle anymore, I kind of just went strictly bow hunting anyway. So it hasn't really been a big concern for me, but I know when you look at whitetail hunting, not just in Minnesota, but in the country in general, I mean, it's huge, particularly in the Midwest, and in Minnesota, it's obviously number one. So there's a lot of people that probably feel pretty strongly one way or another on this.
Yeah. I think there could be debate about whether you should relax the restriction for shotgun only or not. The part that makes me a bit uneasy is this. I don't think you want to usher in the precedent that localities should be setting hunting regulations, because if they can regulate what guns you can use, then what's next? And wildlife is held in trust by the people of Minnesota, and then it's therefore governed statewide by a system that we fund. And so if we shift to a deal where he says, yeah, but the cities and the towns, they can start making their own regulations too, I just worry it leads down a similar path to that thing we were talking about earlier with firearms, which is we need clear-cut rules that everybody can understand that don't wind up posing a barrier. And so I'm a little uneasy about allowing local referendums basically on whether or not you have to use a shotgun. So that would be my only concern about that.
Sure. Well, I hate shotguns for whitetail hunting, honestly. I slug hunted one time, missed a nice bucket 30 yards broadside, and I was like, I'll never use a shotgun ever again. I mean, I've hit pheasants at 65 yards flying as fast as they can. You know, I just closed my eyes and prayed, but and I missed this buck. I'm never again. So
are you ever going to muzzleload hunt again after you missed that buck at 40 yards?
I did shoot one this year. But I don't know. I mean, I love to bow hunt anyway. That's still going to take up all of my time. But I will say the one thing about rifle hunting is that it's obviously more accurate. It's more efficient. It's obviously more lethal, and you get an opportunity to put a more lethal shot on a deer to keep it from going too far and wounding it. And I asked the DNR, when I was using that shotgun, we were filming a TV show, and I had some of the big game program managers from the Minnesota DNR down there. It was a CWD hunt, so we were talking to them about CWD, and I asked them off the air. I'm like, so what's the deal with this shotgun stuff anyway? I was mad. I was so mad. Couldn't believe, because that deer, basically we set it up. We did a deer drive, and we were pushing this draw down in southeast Minnesota. It's beautiful bluff country. And basically me and a camera guy sat up on this ridge looking down into this draw. And then some guys pushed this property towards me. And all of a sudden, like, I hear, and I'm talking to my camera guy through my mic. I'm like, get ready. There's going to be a deer. There's going to be a deer coming at us at 100 miles an hour, running for its life. That buck got shot at like 11 times on its way before it came up to me. And then I saw it coming, and it was just kind of picking its way through the woods along this hillside. So, I mean, it wasn't even full, running full bore. And I'm like, okay, it was almost like slow-mo. I'm like, all right, I'm just going to wait for him to get close. He has no idea I'm here. And then I'm just going to wait for an opening. And then there it is. He's broadside. He's just kind of trotting. Didn't even flinch. And he turns and starts going up the ridge. Shoot at him one more time. Not a piece, not a hair, not a drop of blood, nothing. And he had a radio collar on him. So like I kind of emailed the DNR. I'm like, hey, I know you don't give out GPS location of tracked deer, but just so you know, if that one stops moving, just let me know, because I tried tracking that deer as far as I could, never saw a drop of blood. I don't know how I missed. It's got to be dead somewhere. And then I found out like a week later, somebody else saw it and killed it and shot it. So never again. No more shotguns and slugs for this guy.
That's a funny story. We had shotguns here, slugs only, up until about 7 or 8 years ago, maybe. So I killed a lot of deer with slugs. Now I will say this: once they started using the Sabbats or Savage, or however you say it, yeah. I mean, those things are practically rifle rounds anyway. They're very efficient. But then we recently went to straight wall cartridge, and I have to admit, it's a heck of a leg up. I've really enjoyed using it. So anything you can do, I think, that makes it easier for entry and makes it easier for people to stay in. So, like my dad, he's 81 years old. He'll still hunt, but he can't pull a longbow. If he's going to hunt during archery, it's going to be with a crossbow.
That's
if he's
awesome.
going to pull a trigger, it's going to be straight wall cartridge.
Sure.
And so I look at those issues like, I want more, and that's how we get more. And we can make our own individual decisions about whether we want to do those things.
Right.
But anything that makes entry and retention easier is ultimately going to help us prolong this great heritage that we've got, for 125 or more years now.
So let me clarify, for most of our listeners, and Dan's heard me talk about crossbows probably way too much.
I'm going to go get a drink or something.
We've always, guys, I think it was guys over 65 could always use crossbows, or if you had a medical exemption, doctor's note, you could always use them. I was always cool with that. Heck, I'm not even, I don't even mind if kids use them. Our issue here in Minnesota, I think, is with a 3.5-month archery season. I remember when Wisconsin went to crossbows, and they basically allowed it during the archery season. I can't remember if they sold a different license originally, or if it was, you had to clarify, or if it was just a straight archery tag. I can't remember, but I remember cornering Tom Landwehr in Brainerd at the Governor's Fishing Opener, and it was, we're after hours, just having a cold beverage or a burger or whatever in the bar. And I'm like, Tom, here's the thing. I know Minnesota is going to legalize crossbows for everybody. I don't have any problem with that at all. No problem. just make it its own season. Just make it like a muzzleloader season. I understand you're adding more regulation and you might be adding an extra cost for somebody, but if you did it a season just like muzzleloaders, heck, do it during the muzzleloader season even. I don't care. But you're selling an extra tag to raise funds for the DNR, which you're always looking for ways to raise money. You're keeping the crossbow manufacturers happy. You're keeping the legislators that are getting hit up by the crossbow manufacturers happy. And it's giving people another chance to get into the woods that don't want to shoot a muzzleloader or something like that. And I thought that would make everybody happy. But then I got trashed on social media saying I hated hunters or something like that, I guess. But
well, I certainly didn't want to open up that kind of can of worms for you.
That's all right. I don't mind talking about it.
Years ago, one of the very so for most of our careers, we don't get into a lot of disputes with state fish and game agencies because they tend to be allies. One of the first ones I ever had was a scrap that ironically was in Minnesota over banning of roadside hunting. And all I had was feedback from old timers that were like, hey, you know what? My boy walks the ditch and I walk the side of the road and the dog flushes up a bird. And that's, I'm old. I can't walk through the really thick stuff anymore. And that's the first time it really hit me. Like, gosh, man, sometimes we can regulate ourselves right out of business. I want that old timer still in the woods. Whether he's walking the roadside or he's, using the crossbow or whatever. I want them out there because if they're out there, they're one of us. And when it comes to elections, this goes back to politics, the more of us there are, the more of us that matter.
Yes.
And that'll ultimately, help save our heritage.
That right there is the key point that trumps everything else when we talk about having disagreements or little squabbles within the community. And it drives me crazy when you post something on Facebook, like, hey, we should have a shorter season on this or a longer season on this, or we need to reduce bag limits, or we need to have more doe tags, whatever it is. And then somebody disagrees with you, and then you argue about it. And then it's like, we shouldn't be arguing with each other. And it's like, well, just hold on a second, because there has to be some self-regulation, some self-policing. It's okay to disagree on stuff, but ultimately the way it works is that we do have to have strength in numbers when it comes to voting, because if we don't, we're going to end up like Oregon, and people are going to be voting to ban all of this stuff. That's it. And that's the internal struggle that I have and just to go back to crossbows when I talk about that, because I feel like allowing a crossbow, which can shoot, twice the distance of a vertical bow, or a lot more accurate, and there's no draw that you have to hold at until the buck steps out from behind the tree, or whatever the case may be. To me, it's not the same, but ultimately, I don't want to turn somebody off from hunting. Now, if that's going to be their barrier, I would much rather have them buy a tag and get in the woods and go hunt and introduce it to their kid, or introduce it to their neighbor's kid, or whatever the case, or an adult, or reactivate an adult, or whatever the case may be. I'd much rather see us grow our numbers so that we do have power at the ballot box, because ultimately we need to have that.
Well, that's right. And so sometimes the folks there used to be a trend where a lot of, dedicated sportsmen were referred to folks who would only hunt opening day or 2 days into deer season as weekend warriors.
Weekend warriors.
And I would say, if you look at the stats on how many weekend warriors there are compared to the rest of us, they far outnumber us. Yes. Mm-hmm. And so rather than make them feel like they're somehow outsider, we need them. If they vanished, we'd be dead meat, because there wouldn't be enough of us to matter. And so, some of these things, if it makes it easier for a guy to go in the field, then I generally can tolerate it. We all have things that we think are, legit versus other people's opinion on that stuff. There was a guy who used to work here prior to me, and he was from Michigan, and he was goose guiding in Maryland, and he tells this story that deer season came along, and he asked these guys, hey, where do you buy your apples? And these guys were aghast. It's apples? What are you talking about? Said, oh, yeah, we put out apples for deer season, and man, they lost their mind. And he said, well, how do you guys hunt deer? Well, we got tree stands. And he said, I'd never hunted a tree stand in my entire life. We go in the woods instead of the base of a tree. And when you think about it, we just got to be careful that we want everybody in the tent. You got to make room for the debate or the discussion, to your point.
Right.
But we also want to keep them welcome, because, man, we need them.
We do need them, and that's always the tough part especially when these people start bringing up trail cameras or live scope, forward-facing sonar, things like that. And if you're worried about, it ultimately you have to care about the resource and the health of the resource. Now, not to the point where we care about it so much we're going to ban all hunting in general, because those hunting seasons are there for hunters and anglers, for that matter. So it's that fine balance of having the right amount of people out there in the woods and on the water that care about these species, that care enough about them to take care of them, protect them, conserve the resource, but also buy the license, buy the stamps, buy the guns and the ammo, and go out there and chase them around and hopefully eat them. Ultimately, like we eat wild game every day here. Can't remember the last time, other than some hot dogs or something, we made chili dogs with. I can't remember.
I could go for that again.
Last time I bought meat at the grocery store. Love eating wild game. So it's always a tricky balance.
Right. And sometimes you can step on a landmine that you didn't even know was there. So, we don't have striped bass in Ohio, and I was down on Norris Lake in Tennessee last year. So I hired a guide to take 4 of us out on striped bass fishing. Man, we had a great day. And I come to find out that we had been on 2 boats with forward-facing sonar, and guys were like, "Do you realize how controversial that boat you were on was?" I had no idea.
Oh yeah.
All I knew was we had a good day, and we got into a lot of fish, and we only caught 3 stripers. But man, we were in the smallmouth and the largemouth. My dad.
Wait a minute. You had 2 live scopes and you only caught 3 striper. I thought live scope puts them in the boat for you.
In the boat?
Yeah.
Right. That's exactly. You'd have thought it would have been a done deal, right?
Oh my God. I'm on the tech work group with the DNR here in Minnesota, and we got biologists, game managers, we got guides, other TV hosts and things like that. And it's hard to even get us in a room together and agree on all this stuff. And then there are some people that are so against it, and some people that are, that are for it, but all the people that are for it still want to protect the resource. But it's so, and here's the thing, and especially a guy like me doing a podcast or hosting a TV show or whatever, if I say, I'm for live scope, or it's almost like politics. I'm for trail cameras, or I'm for this. Like, I'm against using a thermal drone to hunt deer. Okay. And I don't think live scope is like spotlighting deer at midnight either. But like, I say stuff like that. Also, I'll get listeners that won't turn us on ever again now, because I just, it's like telling I voted one way or the other for president nowadays.
Yeah. Well, it kind of speaks to just a general trend in our country, which is that we've just become so increasingly tribal.
Yeah.
And we can't just say, Bret, you'd like to see more restrictions on crossbows than me. But so what? In the end, man, we're both getting in the woods. We're both supporting the resource.
Nope, I hate you now. You're off the show. See you later. You're done talking.
This isn't even going to This isn't even going to get aired. We're just going to delete this whole interview. If you don't agree,
we just killed that.
That's it. It's over.
I'm a guy that likes to have constructive conversations. I don't like to name call. I don't like, even on Facebook. Sometimes I'll get into, once in a while, against my better judgment, I'll get into discussions about politics or a controversial topic here and there on Facebook. But I'm never the guy that's like, "Oh, you're an idiot. You're wrong. It needs to be this way." It's like, well, tell me why you think that way. Tell me what you think is going to happen. And here's what I'll tell you, what I think was going to happen. And hopefully we can find a compromise or find some middle ground in there. But that's how you progress. Having conversations and civil discourse and discussions about these kind of things. Just name calling and bashing each other, especially on social media these days. It's so dumb. Like, it's people just like, "I'm on a keyboard. You're an idiot."
Junior high school lunch.
Right. Exactly. Well, and I've asked people this before. Hey, have you ever hammered somebody on Facebook and had them reply, "Oh my gosh, I'm persuaded"? You changed my mind. Yes, that just never happens, right? I think it would help people in the sportsman's community to get out and hunt and fish in other states, because I did a project years ago called Families Afield with the Sportsmen's Alliance, and this whole thing started with, there was a boy, the NWTF is who the Sportsmen's Alliance worked on it with, and the National Shooting Sports Foundation. And there had been a boy shot his first turkey in Kansas. And everybody at this conference, oh, that's great. He's 9 years old. And the guy who was running NWTF at the time, he said, oh, it's not great because his dad had to travel to Kansas for the kid to be able to turkey hunt, because in Wisconsin, he had to be 12. And so we launched off on this project, and the idea of the project was to measure the impact of arbitrarily set minimum hunting ages. And of course, the data's pretty clear. Every minute you wait is another lesser chance you're actually going to get into it. And so 12-year-old is tough, and 14 and 16, which some of the states were, was brutal. And ultimately, we came down on the side of, we just want parents to be able to make that call. But here was the crazy part. I found out from our research that everybody thought that all the other states were doing it the same as them. So I was on a phone call with the director of Fish and Game with Alabama. I said, tell me how you guys regulate youth hunting. And he said, I don't understand your question. I said, so how do you figure out when kids can go in the field? I don't understand your question. What restrictions do you have about young people getting in the field? He said, Rob, down here in Alabama, if a dad wants to take his kid hunting, he just does.
I love the South.
Yes. I was like,
love it.
Wow. And we found out that there were more than 20 states who did it just like that. And then here was the paradigm breaker. Their hunting-related shooting incident data was actually marginally lower than all the other states.
Well, kids are learning about firearms at an earlier age, how to handle them, what damage they can do, how to respect them. And I think isn't Minnesota like that, Dan, where you can, a parent can actually take a kid? Because I did a story, this is years ago now, but I wrote an article for some newspapers, and it was about somebody who took their 3-year-old turkey hunting, I believe. And I got hammered for it, and some people got hammered for it, but it was completely legal as long as the kid was the one pulling the trigger and doing all of that. Yeah. So I don't have kids, so I haven't paid close attention to that rule, but I know I think there's something like that here.
Yeah, so the model for that, we call it apprentice hunting licenses or mentored hunting licenses. And ultimately, the story started with Wisconsin. We passed a mentored hunting bill in Wisconsin as part of this. In Minnesota, it basically says you can take someone hunting regardless of their age, regardless if they've had hunter education, as long as they're under your immediate control. And what we found from like 12 solid years worth of data is mentored hunters were the safest hunter in the woods. And so if you know that's a fact, then what rational basis would you have for not allowing it to happen? Because, man, I don't know, that 9-year-old kid who got to shoot his first turkey, you're telling me that wasn't like a life-changing experience for that kid? Yeah. He's probably still in the woods today.
That's how I started to hunt, was under that Wisconsin mentored license. That whoever I was with, they couldn't have a gun and had to be within arm's reach of me. But so that meant I just had to stay close to my dad or my grandpa. And my dad and I just shared one rifle deer hunting. The first deer I shot, he shot one with the same rifle at the same time. It was the coolest story ever. So much fun.
So Pennsylvania was the first state we did it in. And then we thought Wisconsin would be number 2, but it turned into a real fight. And so we got Ohio second, and then I think Wisconsin was third. But every state we added to the mix, we just discovered that the mentored hunter was the safest hunter in the woods. So I go back to what I said before. I want more. We want to get these kids in the woods before they wind up in travel hockey. And they don't have any time to go hunting. We want them hooked, so they're asking dad to take them out.
I don't know. I just watched the USA men's team win a gold medal. Like the USA hockey program's pretty good right now. But it's funny you bring that up because I mentioned that to Dan when he was still in high school. So Dan's my nephew, and I played sports. I did everything in high school. Just about every activity you can think of that the high school offers, I did it while playing sports at the same time. And then when I graduated and realized I was no good at any of those sports, and I wasn't gonna I did some broadcasting stuff. So I think we had a TV station, and I was the announcer for the home hockey team. I started to realize maybe broadcasting was my future. I was trying to tell Dan, on Friday nights in the fall, instead of playing football, which varsity football is tough to beat, don't get me wrong, but you're missing out on greenheads on Saturday morning, and
You think I didn't go hunting on Saturday morning?
I know you still did, but there were times where you guys couldn't make the trip or whatever. And I said, Dan, I pulled him aside, and Dan and I used to pitch in the backyard all the time and throw a baseball around and whatever. And I'd try to show him some tricks, and then I'd be like, Dan, what you should do is just get on that trap team, because that's something you're going to do for the rest of your. You're going to shoot a shotgun for the rest of your life. You're not going to throw a baseball. You're not going to throw a football. When's the last time you threw a baseball around, Dan?
Actually, in June.
Okay. When's the last time before that you threw a baseball around?
Probably. I played softball for a little bit.
Okay.
I'll make a case against that, but I know exactly where you're going. And I was kind of the exception because I was hooked on the outdoors from a really young age.
Sure.
So I knew I was going to hunt and fish the rest of my life, and I wanted to play sports while I could.
I don't blame you
and enjoy
for that.
But man, there is something cool. Like I do look at the trap stuff, and I know a lot of people that have done it, or the high school fishing teams.
Right.
Like, man, how fun is that? And they're winning scholarships to catch the right 5 fish, and they're going to college for free. Dang it, I'd have loved that.
I interviewed Jim Sable once from the Clay Target League, and I'm convinced that Clay Target League and the fishing teams, for that matter, have done more to introduce kids to the outdoors than anything that's been done in my lifetime, probably.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I agree. Yes, I totally agree with that. And hey, look, don't get me wrong. I love seeing the hockey team win it all.
Yeah,
that's a heck of a deal. But now see, I've got 3 boys and a girl. All 3 of my boys are grown. The travel sports thing,
that's tough.
80 baseball games in one season. When do you have time for these things? When I was a kid, baseball season was like 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And so you had time to work other things in. So our whole point was, parents nowadays, everything is packaged for them, and you've signed on to it. It's 4 months, it's 5 months. Makes it harder to get them in the field if you don't get them hooked. And so what we found with those minimum hunting ages is, let parents make that call. If your kid's not ready.
Yeah.
And if they are ready. And so we just found great success with that. In the beginning, it was controversial, kind of like some of these other subjects we were talking about. But now I think 41 states have apprentice hunting now. And that all got started because some 9-year-old boy wasn't allowed to, shoot a turkey in his own state.
So those apprentice, so you were directly responsible for getting those apprentice license, like the apprentice license program, if you want to call it that, kind of started?
Yeah.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, the Sportsmen's Alliance was the lead organization on it. So, as I mentioned, NWTF highlighted this one boy. And so we approached NWTF and said, man, I think my hair's on fire. Obviously, my hair was on fire. But, I think we want to get into this with you. And we recruited the firearms industry, NSSF, into the conversation. We did some research to find out, do these minimum hunting ages actually impact recruitment? We found out they did. Do higher age restrictions make hunting safer? We found out they didn't. And from that, we asked ourselves, then why are we creating barriers?
Yeah.
And so we launched this program, this 3-way partnership called Families Afield, and the goal was to create apprentice hunting licenses. And gosh, I think the project lasted 12 or 14 years. I think we stopped at 41 states. It's just been nothing but a great success. But it all started with this common idea that if you were in a state with a high minimum age, you thought everybody did it that way.
Yeah.
And so realizing that, down in the South, they've had their kids hunting since they were 6, and to your point, I saw a video, and I don't want to get into a conversation about, who likes Ted Nugent, who doesn't like Ted Nugent, but Ted's in a blind. Yes, Ted's in a blind. He's got a kid sitting in between his legs, and they're deer hunting. And, deer comes out, and, Ted's helping the kid steady and everything else, but the kid pulls the trigger, and he drops this deer. And the kid's entire demeanor changed. And it looked so awesome. And I just walked away from watching that program thinking, I can't imagine why anybody would have a problem with what you just saw.
Right.
And the same is true when you got a kid, sitting in between your legs, at the base of a tree during turkey season. you're going to have to help them hold that gun barrel up, because you know how heavy it gets when you've got to hold it steady for a long time. But does that somehow make it not legit? I think you're making, a memory that might hook them.
I interviewed Ted Nugent, just a quick side story. I interviewed Ted Nugent one time, and I just started at this radio station in Fargo, and they're like, all right, you're going to interview Ted this week. I said, okay. And then Friday afternoons, I had to do this live broadcast from a TGI Fridays. So it was Fridays at Fridays. Clever, right?
Oh, wow. Okay.
Right?
Yes.
And so I had to, like, oh, by the way, you're interviewing Ted while you're in the middle of this loud, noisy bar, during happy hour. So I had to go on live on the radio and try to listen while I had, a pack full of people drinking, some of them heavily. I couldn't hear a word he said. You know how Ted talks too, and I couldn't understand a word he said. I'm just like, okay, great, thanks for being on the show, Ted.
He probably talked about deer baiting.
I have to this day, I heard Janet Reno's name at one point. I'm like, I don't know what's going on right now. And then the guy back at the radio station was supposed to record it for me, and he forgot to hit record. So I never actually heard the interview back. So if anybody out there was listening back in the day,
that was your one. That's hilarious.
Tell me what Ted said.
Ted probably can't handle, like, he probably watched this show once and went, that's that guy from TGI Fridays. I hate him.
I kept asking him questions.
Terrible
He wouldn't answer me.
Yeah.
What? Yeah.
One other thing I wanted to say, and then we'll cut you loose here. When you talked about traveling around to other areas of the country, I use that. I've made that point many times because people will complain about Minnesota for one reason or another. And don't get me wrong, I complain about Minnesota a lot too, but they'll say, well, a fishing here or a fishing regulation or this lake or this public access is bad or whatever. And I'm like, have you ever tried to fish in Texas or Nebraska or out east somewhere? Like, you don't realize how good you have it here. Like, you go down to Kansas or something and there's a pond, a dugout pond that's got catfish and bluegills, and you got to pay a guy $20 to go through the gate to try to catch a catfish. Like, you don't understand sometimes. It's one of those almost like you don't know what you got till it's gone kind of a situation. Like, you don't realize how good you have it here until you travel around and realize, from hunting and fishing, the opportunities we have here. May not be everything that you agree with all the time, but you try to go somewhere else and it could be a lot worse.
The public access we have in this state compared to others, whether it's boat ramps or public lands or public water to hunt, is crazy compared to just about anywhere else. It really is. It's cool.
I'd venture to say the average Minnesota sportsman, if he doesn't get out of the state, he just doesn't know how how good of a deal it is.
Well, and sometimes you don't need to leave the state, to be fair.
As long as you recognize how great it is, it's so much of the Midwest, obviously great whitetail states, great turkey hunting states. In your case, you got that, plus you got great fishing, bears, and the whole 9 yards. It's a heck of a deal. I just think it gives you good perspective because we tend to get set in our own ways about how we think things should be done. And in the end, the number one reason why I hunt more than any other thing is I get to spend time with people that mean something to me. Yeah. And, it's fun to watch your kid play sports. Don't get me wrong. I loved it. But at the same time, now I hunt with them. So it's us doing it. In fact, we went on a bird hunt last week. I just think it really connects people, and it's a very active thing. And obviously it's a healthy thing. And it's just wholesome to be out there, hunting and fishing. So you do that around the country, you get a better perspective. I just think it's if you can get a chance to do it. I've hunted Texas. I've fished in Minnesota. I've been able to see a lot of things with the work I do. I've been grateful for that. And I just think it helps give you a good perspective. And for what we do at the Sportsmen's Alliance, our whole mission is, I want more. We want to protect your right, fight for you to hunt, fish, and trap as much as you want, wherever you want, whenever you want, and getting to see how everybody does it a little differently, it just strikes me as the right way to do it.
I've seen it in my experience. Kids that grow up in the outdoors just tend to be better people, for the most part. Not saying that people that didn't aren't good people, of course. That's going to come out wrong.
That's what it sounds like.
I know.
You're saying.
But I mean, like,
the internet's going to take.
You don't hear about a lot of the problems that you have with kids. You don't hear that from as many of the kids that grow up in the outdoors. You hear some, of course. There's always some, but it seems like most kids that grow up in a family that introduces them to the outdoors at an early age grow up to be pretty good kids, except for maybe.
Why'd you point at Rob like that? Not even on screen. Like that's rude. That's a guest. How dare you treat our guests like that?
Rob Sexton, Sportsmen's Alliance. I had you on way longer than we had planned to. I appreciate you sticking through it, talking about some important stuff. I'd love to have you back on again. And any messages you want to put out, or how can people help you guys accomplish your goals at Sportsmen's Alliance?
Well, here's what I would say. I keep going back to I want more. We are, what the NRA is to the Second Amendment is what we are to hunting rights, and we're only as strong as a community as how many of us pull together. You can visit us at sportsmensalliance.org, get information about the fights we're in, get information about how to join, and we just need more. Make our community stronger. Make our defense that much more, capable. And so we just need more. I know a lot of folks don't know who we are because we're a pretty small outfit, but, we're getting close to 50 years old now. So we've been in the game a long time, and we just want to help keep doing what we all love doing.
It's important work, and it's amazing that you've been around that long, because I didn't realize it either. Social media helps get the word out, I think, so much easier nowadays, and I see the stuff that you guys do, and it's really important work. And like I said earlier, a lot of us don't like to deal with the political side of things, so having guys like you out there fighting the fight for us, I really appreciate it from a personal level, and I'm sure our listeners and viewers do as well. Rob, thanks again. Appreciate the time. Keep up the good work out there.
All right, guys. Thanks for having me. It was a fun talk.
All right, we're going to go to Lake of the Woods and check in with Joe Henry and get a fishing report when we come back. Lake of the Woods is the walleye capital of the world. Plan your ice fishing trip today. We have over 60 lodging options with 30 full-service resorts featuring heated fish houses, ice transportation, meal plans, and sleeper house options. Fish from the famous Rainy River in the South Shore.
You never know what you're going to catch.
To the scenic Northwest Angle.
Here at the Northwest Angle.
Catch walleye, sauger, perch, sturgeon, eel pout, tullibee, northern pike, and more. Fish Minnesota's Lake of the Woods. Learn how at lakeofthewoodsmn.com. Oh, yeah. You know what that music means? Ladies and gentlemen, the SJR 500 coming April 7th and 8th to the Rainy River. Sign up now in the Fish Donkey app.
You should do voiceover.
There's nothing like the thump of a spring walleye on a jig. Them dinosaurs sure get big. Oh, I can't wait. Cannot wait. Here comes, ladies and gentlemen, everybody sing along. April 7th and 8th are the dates. For what?
For the SJR 500, presented by Raceboard and Marine.
The SJR 500! It's more awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, we are getting ready for the SGR 500, April 7th and 8th of the Rainy River. And to talk about getting ready for the Rainy River, Joe Henry from Lake of the Woods Tourism joins us. Joe, are you ready to go?
I'm ready. I'll say this, and we've talked about it 100 times. If I was a musician, with all respect to the artistic ability, the hard work, and all I'd be a little worried because, man, if you crank that song out in a day, that is not a bad song at all. Another good song about the SJR 500, Brett.
I love it. Not every fishing tournament has its own music video, official music video. This one.
10 years ago, we would have had to hire 10 years ago, we had to hire songwriters and professional singers and everything else. And now AI does it in 24 hours.
And I hate it, honestly. It's fun and it's easy for me to do. But, let's talk to Greg Jones. Let's give Greg Jones a song to sing.
Well, I'll tell you what, Brett.
We'll have him record it for next year's event this year at the tournament. So, man.
Danny, will you try to imitate Greg Jones?
Yeah, it's fun. I love Greg. It's fun.
How does he do it?
Well, Joe, AI, Guy in a Buffalo is a good song, but
I don't really know the words,
one of my favorite things about Greg Jones is his musical history.
Yeah.
Like, you ever just sit down at the bar and you get touch tunes going, and then it'll just play this by ZZ Top, and it's some song nobody's ever heard of. But
I know a lot of ZZ Top,
and he can tell you the whole backstory of it, or he sat down with us one day in the cabin, and we were watching like concerts from the 60s, and he's like, well, here in 1032 here, there's going to be a guy on a pole here, and they're not wearing any clothes, and this and that. Like, what? Like, how his music, he loves music so much. It is so cool what he knows. It's fun to talk. I don't know if I've ever told you guys this story. I probably have, so tell me if I'm wrong. But Jonesy, when he got his job with Midwest Outdoors, he had hair down to his ass, and what he had to do is he had to get a haircut because he was a rock and roll star. He was in a rock and roll band, and he had to get a haircut. And so he got his job with Midwest Outdoors. It was really kind of funny. He was telling me the story how the owner of the Midwest Outdoors at the time, Gene Lallinen, he took all the salespeople to an Anthony Robbins motivational deal in Chicago, I think at the United Center. And of course, it's an all-day thing where they motivate you and everything else. And all the salespeople come out of that, and Greg's one of them. And Greg is just an authentic guy. And Gene says, "Greg, what'd you think?" Thinking that Greg's ready to. And Greg goes, "Well, Gene, it reminded me a lot of a Pink Floyd concert. Tear down the walls."
That's great. That's hilarious. I thought he was going to say we don't need no Greg, education.
That's what makes Greg so great, is he's so authentic, so down to earth, and I think that's kind of what we're all talking about. It's kind of cool. Mm-hmm.
Well, we're just thankful that he's willing
to be there.
Willing to play every year at our tournament, and that Paul and Brandy probably take care of him there at Riverbend, and they have him come in and set up and play, and then we kind of borrow his PA system a little bit when we do the podcast. So no, it's great having Greg up there. And Joe, I can't wait. I know we got 5 weeks or so, a little 4.5 weeks, about 4 weeks, I suppose, when this podcast comes out. April 6th, we'll be doing the rules meeting Monday night at Riverbend Resort, and then April 7th and 8th from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. fishing the Rainy River.
You do not have to be present at the rules meeting to participate in the contest. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. And you don't have to be staying at Riverbend. It's probably going to be more fun for you, but you can, it's open to anybody fishing the river those days. You just have to sign up on Fish Donkey. And then the only thing we ask is if you do win prizes, if you finish in the top 3 or whatever, you come into the prize ceremony on Wednesday night when we do the podcast, because then we can give you your prizes. We don't have to ship them and all that good stuff. So,
but what I would say to that too is, for anybody that's thinking about spring fishing, one of the things you might want to consider if you're going up with a friend or a couple relatives or whatever, if you're going to go up spring fish anyway, maybe consider going up over that 7th and 8th, because you can jump into that Fish Donkey. You can go out of your own access. You can be staying at a different resort. You don't have to come to the rules meeting or any of the functions, but you're registered through Fish Donkey. And the cool thing about that is that it's $40 a head. So it's a 2-day tournament. It's sturgeon and walleyes, and you're all fishing anyway. Now you're in this contest for $40 a head. Big deal. And then what happens is, if you want, each night of the tournament, and certainly the weigh-in night where they give away prizes, if you want to shoot over to a Riverbend for a couple of pops or whatever the case might be, maybe grab a sandwich, we're all going to be there. And that's the fun of it. And then, of course, that last night, if you show up that night, of course, it's we figure out who wins the tournament and prizes are given away. And then you also have that live radio show from Riverbend that night. Not live, but you have the radio show from Riverbend with a whole bunch of people involved. And it's really very festive, very welcoming.
It's fun. And yeah, it is a live podcast recording. So it's like the old TV shows, right? Recorded live before a studio audience. We can be a part of it. If you scream something really loud, please don't make it a swear word, but you could get in the background of the podcast most likely.
And one fish could pay for your entire trip.
That's right.
Depending on how many people we have, that kind of determines the payouts, but catching one 30-inch walleye might pay for your entire spring Rainy River trip. One 70-inch sturgeon.
Or 29. Yeah. I mean, we've had it different years.
Absolutely.
It's different sizes, right?
Yep. Whatever it might be, one fish could pay for your entire spring trip.
We've been asked a lot about why it's during the week, and there's a few reasons for it, but one of the biggest ones, Joe, is just because it gets real busy on the weekends up there, and we want to, not have to wait quite as long at the accesses or whatever, but just to have a tournament at a time when it's maybe not quite as busy on the river.
Amen. And the other thing too is the walleye season goes through April 14th. Certainly the sturgeon season goes a lot longer. It goes into May, but with that walleye season ending on April 14th, a lot of people, if they're going to hedge their bets, they're going to hedge their bets for the last 2 weeks of leading up to that 14th, because the river will be open. And the other thing too is the more boat ramps that are open, that diffuses the traffic per boat ramp. So that makes it kind of nice too. But Yeah.
a couple years ago.
It is what it is. And I realize it's midweek, but you know what? Spring fishing, it's a special thing. It's tradition. Only happens once a year. And, like you said, if you can get up there when there's a little bit more availability, it makes life better for everybody.
Well, yeah, there's more availability at the lodge, for lodging. There's more availability everywhere. And it's that last Tuesday and Wednesday every year before the season closes. So you are hedging your bets to open water, when the ice comes off and things like that. And 2 years ago, Dan, that Wheeler's Point access opened up during the first day, I think it was.
Yep.
Something like that. So we had all the accesses up and down the river that we use were wide open. So our tournament goes from the Franz Jevny access to essentially to Lake of the Woods if you access it by boat. So you can't go out of it.
Franz Jevny access is to the east of Birchdale. And what most people do is Birchdale for most, the Nelson Park in Birchdale, for most people, that's kind of the cutoff, because when you start going east of that or upriver, that's where the rapids start. Now, some people will run the rapids. Some people, if they have a small boat, they'll drop in up at Franz Jevny, which is a very small access, but you're going to have rapids below you. If you go for Birchdale, Nelson Park, where the majority of boats will drop in, all the way downstream, there's 42 miles of navigable Rainy River from the mouth of the Rainy River at 4 Mile Bay all the way up to Nelson Park and Birchdale. And that's really all you got to know. Know that, it might be crowded when you're going in there. In fact, Brett, I just wrote an article for Midwest Outdoors, and we talked about different things. I talked about different things to consider when spring fishing. And, one of them, drive safely. Depending on how fast the river opens up, anglers may be forced to just a couple of accesses. And, when you pull up when you're on Highway 11 going 60 miles an hour with a boat, those turns come pretty quick. Plus, there could be stopped traffic, and the sheriff's department, the DNR, do a great job of putting up signage, and especially event traffic, slow down, be cautious, all that good stuff. But you still want to be aware of it. We talk about expecting a crowd. Just expect a crowd. It's spring fishing, and if there's a big crowd, don't get all shook about it. Just know it's going to take a little time to drop in. Take your turn. When you be ready when you drop in, make sure everything's ready to roll. It plugs in, and you're all ready to rock, and help other people out. And just know that, hey, listen, it might take me a little while to drop in, but you know what? Once you get on the river, you can spread out, and when you get a few hook sets into some nice walleyes, that's what it's all about. It makes it all worth it. It's all part of the experience. Talk about having your boat ready, being aware of slippery boat ramps. If it's really, really cold, when you pull out of that boat ramp, that water that's coming off of trailers could freeze. So 2 things there. Number one, when you pull your trailer and boat out, slow down, let it drain, let the majority of it drain back into the river when you're pulling it out. Don't go real fast so all the water goes on that cement. Just let it drain just for a couple of seconds, into the river. The other thing is Cooch County does a really nice job of having a pile of sand mixed with salt at the different boat ramps and that stretch of the river. And that's, obviously to throw on that pavement if it ggets a little bit slick. We talk about parking smart. They have no parking signs up. And, I remember the one year there was a pickup truck with a boat trailer blocking an entryway into one of the local who owns those fields into their right of way. And there's no parking signs there. You know what their logical is? You know what? There's 3 of us. Let's just divide the ticket. It's a lot closer.
Oh boy.
Well, we want to be good stewards to the locals there who I'll say put up with or have to experience a large volume of people for the spring fishing tradition every single year. So let's be as courteous as possible. Expect a walk. If you're going to have to park a ways away with your boat and your trailer.
Yeah. I just want to say thank you to the guy that left a bike in the ditch. Was that last year?
Yeah. Well, let's preface this. Don't litter. Don't leave your trash behind,
Yeah,
which may have been the case. But yeah, we did find just a random bike in the ditch, and then we put it back when we were done with it. We put it back just in case the owner was still fishing. Happened to be there the next day, so yeah, I pedaled the bike again, and we left it there in case the owner's still there.
It seemed like
but in the meantime, when you had that bike, he came back to use it. It was gone.
Well, it was at the landing.
Yeah, he didn't have
so
to
if he was on the water,
he would have found it.
Yeah.
No.
Well, that's one of the other tips too. Is that some people do bring a bike with, and for listeners that don't, why would people bring a bike? You're parking so far away that some people will bring a bike with them so they can bike back to the access. It could be a mile, and So they bike back to the access. A lot of times what they'll do is you'll see bikes in the bow of a boat. They'll throw it in the front of their boat while they're fishing. Like, why would that person have a bike? That's because they want to get back and forth to their truck and their.
Well, and there's also been a kid driving a golf cart, and then there's been various people just driving cars.
Well, he's a multimillionaire. I don't know.
Oh my gosh,
he's rich. Well, and the other thing too, if there's not a massive line, if you see someone walking from their truck down and you're pulling in to launch, you could get stopped and let the guy hop in, on your tailgate or on your fender. I've had people offer that. So when they're driving down to get ready to launch, you get a little head start. So that's a cool thing to do too. If you're pulling in and somebody's walking, give them a ride. And when we're all having fun and being polite and respectful, it just makes the experience better for everybody.
And most people are, I get a kick out of that. The kids down there that are using either old cars, I've even seen them using golf carts at times, but they're giving rides. They can't charge for it, but they accept tips. Yeah. And they'll give people rides back and forth, which is, of course, talk about other safety measures. You guys having cleats on your boots, wearing a life preserver, dress like you're ice fishing, hang on to your boat if there's shoreline ice, boat during daylight hours, help out a neighbor, boat slow, be careful of ice chunks, rocks, and other boats. We talk about, watching out for ice chunks when you're rolling on the river. And, we even talk about if you're going to anchor up on the river and there's a lot of ice, have a knife with you. And the reason you have a knife is because if a big ice chunk comes down river and you have that rope in the water with an anchor, if that ice chunk takes that rope, it could pull your bow down below the water. So you'd want to cut that rope right away so that wouldn't happen. Some people use a trolling motor and they can spot lock against it. They have a good enough trolling motor and battery, but just be aware. And I think the other thing is navigation. Just the GPSs we have now with the map chips in them are really, really good for the Rainy River. They're very accurate. But just know that there are sandbars and, there are logs that float down on pieces of ice and even just other boats. I mean, some of the boats are small and they don't stick out like the big ones do. So again, it's just about that common safety. But, if you go into it with the right attitude, I think it makes the experience much less stressful, much more enjoyable.
I can't wait, Joe. We have an idea for the SGR 500 this year that we were kind of brainstorming it earlier in the show. We're going to do some contingency prizes, we thought. And if somebody's wearing Fish Hunt Forever gear, we've got brand new Fish Hunt Forever SGR 500 gear for this year's tournament available now on the Fish Hunt Forever store at fishhuntforever.com. But if you're wearing any Fish Hunt Forever gear that's legible, that we can read and see visibly in your picture that you put into the Fish Donkey app. So if you catch a tournament-winning fish, and that's the pic, and you're wearing Fish Hunt Forever in the picture that you put into the Fish Donkey app, we're going to give you a contingency prize of, I don't know, $100, $200. We haven't figured that part out yet, but we're going to add a little cash prize to it, I think.
I better keep my Fish Hunt Forever shirt ready to roll in case I catch a big one.
And we thought, even better, Dan had this idea, if somebody catches a state record, we'll bump it up a couple $100 even.
Well, I'll tell you what, and all kidding aside, I would encourage anybody going to the Rainy River, whether you're fishing the SGR 500 or not, I would encourage everybody to just take a quick read up on what it takes to qualify a sturgeon as a state record in Minnesota for the catch and release state record, and then have a measuring tape or a measuring device, and then also know that you need to, how to measure that fish. You need to measure both lengthwise and have a witness. But you also have to measure that girth around the girth and know where to do that and how many pictures to take. Take a quick peek. Just do a Google search on catch and release, qualifications or catch and release application in the state of Minnesota for fish, and it'll pop right out. But again, it's good to have those things with, because I'll tell you, there's been many, many state record sturgeon that have been caught that people didn't have the right stuff with them, or maybe they didn't measure it properly, or whatever the case might be. In fact, Bret, the one I haven't heard on officially, whether it's actually a state record or not, is when Sportsman's Lodge last spring had their tournament. I think somebody got like a 78.5 or 78 3/4, and that actually would have been the largest in the state. But I'm not sure if they had everything they needed for it for measurements and such.
Sounds like it. And I see you're wearing camouflage, Joe. Dan, I don't know if you can pull it up again from the store, but our new SGR 500 gear this year is going to include some of the old school camo. So we have some of the old school camo hoodies with the logo on it, and also the mugs as well, which I think those mugs turned out. But look at the back. Look at the back. I think that's awesome. Big old sturgeon stash on the back. She will not be there, I don't think.
You don't know that.
Who's that model?
I have no idea. She could be there, I guess. But and then we have some non-camel mugs too. But there's the old school camel mug with the SJR 500 and Ray's Sport and Marine displayed proudly.
Oh, your new hats. Don't you have like some new deluxe hats or something?
So those are brand new ones. The SJR 500 ones are brand new. To be fair, I have not seen how good of quality they are yet, but I'm going to order one and test it. But the other ones down there, like the rope hat that Dan's showing right now, Dan loves that hat.
Love it.
The Elite one is one I've been wearing. Of course, the old school camo is everybody's favorite. And then the beanies are nice as well, too. Yeah, that's the one I've been wearing.
You know what's going to happen? Someone's going to buy one of these hats, one of the baseball caps.
They're going to lose it.
They're going to go fishing. They're going to lose it in the river, and they're going to catch a state record.
Yeah.
And they're not going to have their FHF gear on. They're not going to get the contingency prize.
So I have one response to that. Buy two of them.
That's true. Keep one in your boat.
When Dan and I were fishing a couple years ago on the river, he lost his hat. He was so mad.
Well, we got it back, but
it was wet.
It was wet, right? And it was cold. So I had this shot right here. I'm wearing the stocking cap because I lost my hat, and it was a late night, so I look just terrible. And I've got that stupid stocking cap on, and it wasn't a good look.
So the question I have is, it's kind of funny, but, so we all know it's Fish Hunt Forever. But when people from the outside don't know that acronym, what the heck do you think FHF is?
Clearly Fish Hunt Forever, obviously. Duh. No, it can mean a lot of things. I know there's another company out there that uses FHF, and I did not know anything about them when I started making these hats. So
I don't know what their FHF stands for. I don't know if they know either.
Yeah, I don't know. But ours is Fish Hunt Forever, and it's just Fish Hunt Forever doesn't fit very well on a. The only place I use FHF is on the hats, just because it fills the hat so much better than otherwise. It's just Fish Hunt Forever, real small, and you can't read it. So having the combination of the two has been helpful. But
very cool. I see that you have your Onyx hat on, and believe it or not, I have Onyx. I have that as one of my bullet points on one of my slides for the presentations I'll be giving at the next couple of weeks sports shows. I better know one of the presentations I do is all about reading the water for walleyes, and one of the things I talk about are all the different tools you can use before you even hit the water, and of course that's everything from Johnson Outdoors has the One Boat Network. They have basically it's the Humminbird charts on your smartphone. Navionics has some really good charts. That's now Garmin. But even using the Onyx Fish app is a really nice idea when you're searching out new water, wanting to see what kind of test nets are, getting a better understanding where the boat ramps are, what resorts are on the lake. It's one of the many tools that I talk about. Doing your homework before you even hit the water that can make you a better angler.
Well, I can't wait. April 7th and 8th, Rainy River. Joe, we should mention, I was seeing some posts on Facebook today of people still ice fishing out there on the lake.
Well, ice fishing goes through March 31st. And, we still have, in most cases, we have over 3 feet of ice. I looked at the 10-day forecast, and, you really look at those overnight temps. Are those overnight temps freezing? Heck, a lot of the daytime temps are still freezing, and certainly the overnight temps are. In fact, we got a stretch coming up over the next 10 days with below zero weather at night. So, our ice is holding up really nicely. And, if people want to get up and get that extra trip up to Lake of the Woods, whether it's targeting your walleyes and saugers, which is traditional, otherwise going after those huge pike this time of year, the days are getting longer. So regardless of the temperature, when those days get longer, Mother Nature's putting something in these fish, kind of letting them know, okay, spawn's coming up. Time to put that feed bag on and start positioning yourself, near your spawning areas. And that's why we'll get a lot of fish in an area. And, Lake of the Woods, as far as being a trophy pike fishery, there are so many pike over 40 inches. I mean, you really, if you hit it right, tip-up fishing on Lake of the Woods, you could catch multiple personal best pike in a day, just like you can on the Rainy River when you're fishing those walleyes.
And you're in you're in Fargo this weekend. Is that right?
Yeah, yep. So the Red River Valley Sports Show is this weekend in Fargo, North Dakota at the Fargo Dome. Lake of the Woods Tourism will have a booth. And in addition, we're going to have I'll be seminars every day. So I'll be giving one seminar on Thursday night. It opens up at 5 o'clock on Thursday. And I'll be giving 2 seminars Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So, Yeah, it's game on. And then, Brett, the week after is the last sports show of the year for me. That's in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And it's going to be the same deal. I'll be having a booth for Lake of the Woods Tourism, talking Lake of the Woods, helping people, plan their trips, answer questions, but then also giving a couple of really good seminars. In fact, the titles of the seminar, and Barry Snako, the show promoter, was giving me a hard time because my titles are kind of long, but they are.
You need an acronym like FHF.
FHF, yeah.
I know. I do need an acronym. One of them is called Reading the Water, Where Walleyes Live and Why. And the other one is, Simple Tactics, Big Results. Fishing Success for Anglers. And that one's really more of meeting people where they're at and multi-species, and just really talking about what are some basics you can do to go and have more success on the water wherever you fish and whatever you fish for. It's a little bit more of an open one. So both have been very well received. I've given them many times before this year already, actually. And so we expect the same in Fargo and in Sioux Falls.
Well, have fun in Fargo. I'm sure you'll run into a lot of our friends up there. And thanks for the time today. Joan, if people want to get a trip planned to Lake of the Woods, maybe late ice, maybe spring rainy river, maybe starting to plan that traditional summer trip, what should they do?
Everything you need is on resorts, fishing, tactics. Everything's on our website, and that is lakeofthewoodsmn.com.
Thanks for listening to the Fish Hunt Forever show. Download the Fish Hunt Forever podcast wherever you get podcasts or watch on the Fish Hunt Forever YouTube channel. If you like today's show, please give us a 5-star review. Find past shows, articles, news about regulations, and more at fishhuntforever.com.